Hi guys, welcome to our Instagram live. You can see Michelle there in the corner. Here's Michael. Some of you guys don't know Michael. That's Kabo's boyfriend. We're gonna get started here. People are taking like bathroom breaks last minute and stuff, but we're hopping on, getting ready. I see some people already joined. Who joined? I'm like, yes, Mal, Kendra, Evie, Allie, Heidi, Natalie. So fun to see you guys. Thanks for joining in. As we go through tonight, feel free to comment, to ask questions, whatever needs to happen. Nate's coming. Tim's eventually coming to join us, but we've got Nate and I, Tim and Michelle, Katie and Michael here. We're going to do our first ever WNT live. It's going to be fun. So I thought we would just like start and talk about our quarantined, socially isolated lives. Michelle, what have you been up to?
Yeah, on my Corona day, I had 6 hours of class live online, which was super fun. Had some people show us their pets in my classes, and it was pretty great. So it's been a pretty chill day so far for me. How about you guys?
I worked from my hammock for 3 hours in the backyard. I'm a little sunburned.
She's living the life today.
Yeah, I can be on my laptop. That's all I've got. Usually at work I have 2 monitors and it's a whole setup. But with the laptop, I'm a lot less productive, but I can hammock, so not the worst.
Boom. As you can see, Nate's joined the convo.
What's up, WT?
Got so many people joining. Riley, Joshua.
Oh, fun. I love it. Well, I don't really know what I've been doing besides it feels like canceling a lot of stuff. So I feel so bad, but WNT is not canceled. I know we might use canceled language, but we're going to continue to gather these weeks that other things aren't happening in person. We're going to gather virtually and we're going to create space to connect. And I'm really excited about that. I have been doing a lot of standing at my kitchen counter, talking to all these lovely humans when they pass by. Woo! And trying to organize stuff for tonight and get things communicated, but it's been good. I actually got to go skiing the last day that skiing was a thing.
Yes, so good.
Nate and I went with my siblings, and because of that, now we can't leave the house because we went to Summit County. So it's been fun to just be in the house and not be allowed to do anything, but it's kind of fun because we have all these great housemates, so we can't really complain too much. But we're gonna do a bunch of different things tonight. So if you're just now joining us, welcome. Super glad that you're here. Super glad that you're gonna be a part tonight. Nate, what are you doing? Oh, okay. Nate's gonna move the lamp. He feels like it's distracting. That's fine.
I gotta get the aesthetic right.
The aesthetic has to be right. So anyway, but I wanted to just welcome you guys and just say again that I'm so glad that we can connect and just be together in a way, even though we're not present in body. Whoa, hello Nate with the lamp. But we're getting to be present with each other and getting to connect. And I just wanted to read this verse before we get started. It's Hebrews 10 and it's verses 24 and 25. It says, "Let us consider how to stir one another to love and good works, not neglecting to meet together as some are in the habit of doing, but encouraging one another, and all the more as you see the day drawing near." So I just love that, not neglecting to meet together as some are in the habit of doing. I think this is a season where it would be really easy for us to neglect to meet together. So I want us to be intentional in the ways that we reach out individually, in the ways that we gather corporately and collectively, to just be meeting together in some way and connecting, because I think it's really easy in this season for us to feel isolated and alone in the things that we might be going through. And I know for some of you, you're just having a blast being home from school. For some others of you, this is a more stressful time. So we're just here for it as a community, whatever that looks like for you. So we're going to get started with a game. But before we do that, I just want to give you kind of a plan for the night. So game is going to happen. Katie and Michael and Nate and I are going to be facing off in a classic couples game. We're really excited. I'm hoping that we win because we should. We've been married for several years
We
now.
better
so
win.
We better win.
We better.
I'm really hoping we win, but I don't know. So
Who's gonna get more pressure, the married couple or the dating couple?
I know,
it's just like
they're probably just relaxed.
Comment with your vote of who's gonna win.
Just
saying.
chilling. I know. Who do you
Oh.
think? Who do you think?
I'm gonna try and keep score as best I can. So
So we're gonna do this game, and then after that, we're gonna jump into a panel about dating and relationships. Tim's gonna come up from the basement at some point and join us. That's gonna be great. And we're just gonna talk through questions that you guys have submitted, questions that we've come up with, and then any questions that you guys continue to submit as we are live tonight on YouTube and Instagram. So please send in those things if you have them. And then after that, I just have a few announcements about what's going to be coming up for the WNT fam. Michelle, what's the news over there?
oh, we just got one vote for Lindsay and Nate.
yeah.
Yes, love it. Okay,
So
good stuff. So yeah, that's kind of what we're doing tonight. I'll tell you at the end a few things coming up for our WNT fam, and then we will switch over to Zoom, and hopefully you guys are able to connect with your small groups. That's probably going to be one of the most important things I think for us to keep doing is just meeting together in small groups. So we want to give you guys a full hour to just do that if you guys would like to utilize that. So feel free to message us with questions. We'll give you again the code at the end for the Zoom chat room and stuff, and then there's a password as well. So we'll get that stuff to you at the end before we switch over. It's also on Instagram and in your text. I think Tim's up here now. Tim,
no.
He went back down.
Nope.
Just kidding.
False
Fake
alarm.
out, fake
False
out.
alarm. Okay, so Michelle is gonna lead us in this amazing game.
All right, y'all.
Go for it.
I got
Take it
some
away,
great
Michelle.
questions. So here we go. Okay,
Alright.
so
Explain how it works.
okay,
Michelle.
so each person is gonna hold up. They each have one shoe, both the part of the couples, and they're gonna raise they have a heel and looks like a tennis shoe. So I'm gonna ask a question like, who likes pizza more? That's not one of the questions, and then they're gonna, without seeing each other, they're gonna raise their shoe of whichever one they think is the right answer. So who likes pizza more? So you both have to vote and no looking at the other person. Okay, so in this case, Nate and Lindsay both guessed Nate, so they are gonna get a point.
Yes.
And then what did you
Because-
guys?
We didn't.
They didn't do
They
it.
didn't
So
do it.
we're gonna. That was just a practice
Wow.
And
round.
did you explain that each shoe is like,
Yes.
this is my shoe?
So Nate,
This
the
is
boy
mine.
shoe is the tennis shoes, or the chacos over here, and then the girl shoe is either Lindsay's heel or the little slip-on over here. So that's how we're doing it. So if they say the same answer, then they get a point, and if they say a different answer, they're wrong. They lose. Okay, so here we go.
Oh,
So who made the first move? Okay, so Nate and Lindsay. All right, and who was the first? Oh wait, you guys got it too. Okay, sorry. Who was the first to declare their love? Oh, we got both again. Okay, who's more romantic? Okay, you guys, you're killing it. Okay, who plans more elaborate date nights? Oh, there was some thought on that one, Michael. Are you cheating over there? Okay.
No
All right.
cheating. No cheating.
Okay, who wears the pants in the relationship? Ooh.
Oh my gosh.
Not the actual pants. Oh my gosh, that's not fair. Okay, we need one vote here. One vote. Final answer. Final answer. The people want to know.
Dang it.
Come on. Oh, okay. The men wear the pants, apparently. Okay. Who's the best driver? Ooh, we got one down over here with Katie.
Oh,
That's okay.
yes.
So who's more likely to talk their way out of a speeding ticket? All right, Nate hasn't voted yet, so we're not sure. But so far, okay. So everyone said
I
the other
don't know.
person and not themselves.
What did you say?
Everyone thinks
Okay.
they're bad negotiators.
Yeah.
Apparently in
Okay,
this
actually,
room.
quick story on that. Lindsay and I have both agreed that when we get speeding tickets, we're just like, I deserve this,
I
and we just accept it.
No one thinks they're good at talking their way out of speeding tickets. Okay, who's better when it comes to directions? Ooh. Oh, the girls are better at directions. Okay. Who is the best chef? All right. Apparently, Lindsay
Hey.
and Michael are the best chefs in the relationship.
That's
There you
true.
go.
That's
Okay.
true.
Who stays up late? Oh, okay. Well, pick one. Come on, Nate. Who stays up later? Oh, we got both.
Hey,
Okay.
nice.
The women stay up late.
Okay, how many more?
Just a few. Do you want to do a few more? Or no?
3
Okay,
more?
3 more. Okay.
Okay.
Who is more stubborn?
We're both really
Okay,
stubborn.
pick one. Who's more stubborn? Michael's pretty stubborn, and Lindsay's stubborn. Wow. Okay.
Nate's kind of more honest at this game since we got married.
Totally. Okay, here's a good one. Last one? Who's needier when they're sick? Needier when they're sick. Okay, come on, Nate. You can do this. Who's needier? Needier.
Needier.
So
I'm
needy.
trying to remember when Lindsay was sick.
Nate,
last.
come on. We all know the answer to this one. I'm pretty sure all
I
of
refuse to vote on this one.
Then the vote goes to Nate in that one. So I'm pretty sure you guys tied. So no
Hey!
way.
Nice.
It's okay. It was great.
That was so good. Oh man.
Good job.
Oh,
Ugh, so good.
good stuff.
Nice.
Okay, well, we are going to jump in, and I'm just gonna come closer to the screen for a sec so that it's easy for you guys to know who's talking and what's happening, and then I'll go back and then we'll do the panel. But just kind of wanted to intro our series a little bit for those of you who have either not been around for the whole thing, or it's just been a really long week since coronavirus happened and you just need a refresher on kind of where we've been in our series. So I just wanted to kind of review through the weeks. This is our 5th week, and we're going to be talking about dating and relationships, and I brought in the experts here to talk to you guys about dating and relationships. So so week 1 was like a while ago. It's been a whole month since then. But we had Taylor talk to us the first week of our series, and he talked about how we were created for relationships, that God's a relational God, and that he created us to be in relationship with each other, in relationship with him. And his kind of main idea that we kept coming back to the whole series was, unless we're wholeheartedly pursuing our relationship with Jesus, all other relationships will be a hopeless attempt to fill the void that only Jesus can fill in our lives. And so we've been really coming back to that each week and saying, man, as we look at this area, we need to remember that none of this is even helpful unless we're like being filled by Jesus. All this advice is great, but if it's not Jesus at the center of our life, like we're going to be looking for fulfillment in all the wrong places. So that was week 1. And then week 2, we talked about sex and God's design for sex. And I talked about, man, how did God create this? And if we really want to understand how this good gift was created, we need to ask the person who designed it. And so kind of the main idea we kept coming back to that week was that sex is a good gift from God that he has a plan for. And if sex is actually designed by God as a gift, then we should use it in the ways that he designed it to be used. And so we talked about how that is really in the context of marriage, and that in marriage, this is this gift for us in all these different ways to connect us, to help us have children, for pleasure, all these different things. If you want to go back and look at your notes for that one, it was a great time just talking about that. And then week 3, we talked about LGBTQ. We talked about the church's position on that, and we really talked about how Jesus, he cares deeply about our sexuality. He cares about our sexual orientation. He cares about our gender identity, but his primary concern is that we're in relationship with him and that we have a relationship with Jesus. And so then once we know Jesus, right, like we see that God actually commands us to live in a way that honors him. And that could look a lot of different ways for people depending on their orientation, how they've identified, just their life experience, right? But what we do is we say, what are all these different areas of my life, including my sexuality, including my gender, and how do I bring those under the lordship of Jesus and allow him to transform those different areas of my life? And so we talked about that the 3rd week. And then last week we talked about the difference between lust and love, which was just a great time to really think about, okay, what is really a good and healthy
relationship look like? What does healthy sexuality look like? And actually that looks like love and not like lust. And we talked about how lust is selfish, it's self-focused, but that love is selfless and it's others focused. And we talked about just a bunch of different things around that, and talked about how we have a bunch of different problems in our culture with lust, and one of the main ones is pornography, and just encouraged you guys, if you're struggling with lust, to really be getting help for that, and to be bringing that into community, and just really confessing that sin to God, to others, and then getting accountability, setting boundaries, because Jesus wants you to be free from those things, and Jesus can really redeem and restore any area of our life where we experience the brokenness of sin, where we don't measure up to the expectations that God has for us, for the desires that he really has for freedom and for goodness in our life. So that's kind of where we've been. And so tonight we're going to continue with this main idea. I think it's such a good one. I think Katie and Michael would agree with me. Tim and Michelle are joining us in a minute, and so is Nate. But really this idea that we need to be wholeheartedly pursuing a relationship with Jesus. Otherwise, dating and relationships of any kind really are going to leave us empty, because they aren't designed to fulfill us in the way that Jesus is designed to fulfill us. And so we're going to talk about what it means to date as a Christian, and how we can honor God in that. And a lot of this is going to be opinions, right? Our culture has a lot of rules, a lot of expectations around dating. And I think it can help to know those, to pay attention to those sometimes, right? Like there's some wisdom there. But also, like, if our standard isn't to honor God and to honor our neighbor, then like we have missed it. And so that's what we want to talk about tonight in our panel, is how do we love Jesus, and how do we honor our brother and sister by the way that we live, by the way that we date, by the way that we engage in relationships. And it's a difficult topic, right? Because the Bible doesn't talk about dating. I don't know if you've noticed that, but there wasn't really dating in biblical times. And so we have to take what scripture says, and we have to gather what it says about loving each other, about honoring one another. And then we have to bring that into the realm of dating, because it didn't really exist then. And so we're gonna do that tonight, and I'm really excited to kick that off here. I think that's it. So I'm gonna call upon various ones of my housemates as we begin this discussion, and would love for you guys to continue to comment with questions, etc. And we're gonna get started. I have a whole list of questions that have been submitted, and we'll just jump right into that. So I hope you guys enjoy, and at the end we'll go over a few announcements and then transition to small groups over Zoom like I said before. So hope you guys enjoy. All right, I have a miniature panel here with me for now. The boys to join eventually. I'm like, I don't know, where did Nate go? He needed to go to the bathroom. Or he felt ashamed that he's the most needy, sick person. I don't know.
He's mad at me, so
He's probably mad at Michelle. So, okay, but we're just gonna start off really lighthearted. I know there's some complex questions when it comes to this topic, but we're gonna start out with just a really lighthearted question. I would love for you guys to tell us a funny dating story. Okay, or fun, just like a fun or funny story of a date, or the process of beginning to date someone. That's gonna be mine, because Nate was really weird at the beginning of our relationship. So yeah.
I think, Katie and my story is kind of also about how we started dating. I asked her out on a date, and she said no. And then, how long was it?
Yeah, a week.
A week later, she came back and she said that she did want to go on a date.
And then Journey, which is a conference, we realized.
It was like 2 weeks before we actually went on the date, which went well. We just went to a coffee shop and chatted for a few hours. Then a couple days later, I asked her on another date, and she said no.
I said yes.
You said yes.
I
You
said
said
yes to another
You
date.
said yes to another date.
Yes.
But then
4 days
4 days
later,
later,
I said
you
no.
said no.
Wow.
And then a month went by.
I don't know went by.
And then I came back and was like, hi,
I don't
like
know.
you.
I don't know if this is funny or just like
I
painful.
know.
It's kind of painful. Like there was a lot of back and forth in the beginning of their tumultuous
It was like
relationship.
it was a 2-month process.
Yeah. Took a while, but
Yeah.
since then it's been great.
It's been really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got it. We
I
got all
love
the
it.
questioning out like
Yeah.
really early, and then it's
Yeah.
like, yes, I want to date this person, and then you were like, yeah, I'll date you, and here we are.
Here we are.
Wonderful.
It's good.
Wonderful.
So glad you said yes, finally.
I mean, lots of times.
Oh man.
Okay, my super quick story is that when I was dating Tim, we didn't say I love you to each other. It was just something we decided that we didn't really want to do unless we were engaged and married. And so after we've been dating for a few months, and I say I love you fairly often to people that I really genuinely love and care about. So it's not like something I never say to people, but I was hanging out with Tim's parents and Tim one night at his parents' house, and we were leaving, and I really genuinely love Tim's parents so much, and if you know them, they're great people. Kirk and Lisa, shout out to them. So they're awesome, but we were leaving the house to go somewhere else, Tim and I, and as we were leaving, we were saying goodbye to his parents, and they gave me hugs, and I'm walking away, and I just said, okay, bye, I love you, and then I turned and kept walking, and I'm walking and we're going to the car, and I'm like, I think I just said I love you to Tim's parents while we're dating, and I haven't said I love you to Tim. And I don't know how I feel about that. So the joke now is with my in-laws that I said I love you to them first before I said it to Tim. It's this whole big thing, but I really do love them and grew to love them even more, but it was just a little embarrassing, and I just never talked to them about it because I was so embarrassed until we got engaged. And then I was like, remember that time? Oh, they probably said it. Anyway.
Remember that time when we
Yeah, I said
had
I
that
love you.
exchange?
Yeah, it was great. So it was a little embarrassing. Not a huge deal, but a little awkward I felt about it when I left. So
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I love it. Well, I guess I have to tell you about the beginning of Nate and I's relationship.
It's a good
Some
one.
of you guys have heard this, I think, but if you haven't,
It's a classic.
it's a classic. I don't really know how to even start this. Nate had liked me for a while. I was pretty oblivious. I eventually caught on. That's the very quick summary. And so by the time he had asked me out, I had totally caught on. And before he asked me out, well before
So
I had caught on.
okay, hold up. By a while, Lindsay means an entire year. Like it had been, I had met Lindsay, and
Yeah.
but she was dating somebody else at the time, and so I waited. No, I didn't wait a whole year, but I was like, like she's dating somebody else, whatever.
you
move
pined.
on.
You pined
Yeah.
for a year.
Lindsay broke up you break with him or he broke?
I broke up with
Yeah,
him.
yeah,
Come
that's right.
on.
That's right. Yeah. Lindsay broke up with this guy, and breakups are awful.
I think
and,
you're gonna make this too long. I feel
like
I
no,
need to,
this is short. But
fast forward ahead.
3 months later, after 3 months later after she had broke up with the guy, I couldn't stand it anymore because I still liked Lindsay so much, and then I finally asked her out. So.
Okay, the funny part of the story that you're not gonna tell because it's still a source of shame is that when Nate finally decided to ask me out, he had a lot of accountability, and we were out hanging out with some of the other WNT staff after a WNT because Nate and I met at WNT, and so we were out and we were about to head home. So Nate actually made a plot with some other people so that
With Tim
he
and
would
Waldo.
with Tim and Waldo so that he could walk me to my car by myself. And so he walks me to the car. We're just chatting it up, and then Nate goes, "What did you say?" You were like,
I was like, "Hey, what are you doing tomorrow?"
What are you
night at
doing
7?
tomorrow? And he gave. Oh, not at 7.
No, I just said,
He
"Hey,
just
what are you
said,
doing tomorrow?"
"What are you doing tomorrow?" And then I said, "Well, I get off work at 7." I was giving him an in, and then he just goes, "Well, goodbye, good night," or something, and he just turns and walks away, and I get in my car and I shut the door. And apparently, when I get in my car to shut the door, Nate goes, "Wait!" I didn't hear this at all. So anyway,
Okay, hold on. So there were 5 opportunities to ask her out, and I was so nervous, and I liked Lindsay so much, and there was this by the way, the detail she left out was when I asked her like okay, I need to break this down. Here's Lindsay's. Here's Lindsay's car, right? Here's her car. Here's like the street. We're walking to her car, and she like went to the driver's side of her car, and I'm standing at like the back bumper, and that's when I'm like,
Awkwardly?
yeah, super awkward. I'm like, hey, Lindsay, what are you doing tomorrow? And she was like, that whole thing happened, and then I froze, and I didn't ask her out. I totally chickened out. And then she like is getting into her car, and in my head I was like, no, Nathan, this is your future. This is your future wife. And she's like leaving. This is it. And then I was like, wait. And she had gotten in her car, and I was like, no. And I ran to my car, and I got into my car, and I was like, and I just got in, and I started like chasing after her in my car.
He followed me, you guys. Like, he followed me almost all the way home, and I knew he was following me.
Wait. Okay, so I get in my car.
It's so bad.
I get in my car, and like all that was in my head was, I need to ask her out. Like, I can't let this moment escape. And then I started like driving, and then I'm like, what am I doing? And then I just realized, oh my gosh, I'm following her. I'm following Lindsay. But then, like, Erie's like these 2-lane highways. There was no turnoff, so I was just like stuck behind Lindsay, and like didn't know what to do. So I like gave her all the space. Basically, it was so.
If you want to hear the full version with all of Nate's detail, ask him.
If you
I don't know, in your small group.
Two pieces
Send
of dating
him
advice.
Direct message.
Two
we need
morals.
to move on.
No,
two morals.
I need to give
this is good.
Two morals of this story. A, actually ask out a girl, the first time, and then B, don't awkwardly follow them.
Yeah.
Don't stalk them.
Don't stalk
become
them.
a stalker.
Stalking is
In your
bad.
car.
Stalking is not good.
Forever.
Not advised.
It's
good.
generally not well accepted.
Yeah, think
Oh,
things
man.
through.
Okay.
So,
Okay. We're gonna dive in now. We're done with the funny stories. Okay, so let's see, which question do we want to do? Okay, I would just love to start with, like, what does a healthy dating relationship look like? Like, what are elements that you would expect to see in a healthy dating relationship? I think this is really important for us to think about what that looks like as you guys are either dating now or thinking about dating in the future. What does it look like? Oh man.
I think like one of the big things is just like in-depth conversations, and like really just conversations that help you get to know the other person, like the good things and the bad things. Just talking about hard things in your past, or like the fun things that you've done, and like why you've enjoyed those things or why those things have been hard.
That's great.
I think being able to have fun together, like if you can only ever have serious conversations, which obviously are important, or you only ever make out and you never actually enjoy each other's company, and you can't like have fun and just take it easy and naturally laugh together and enjoy each other's company, then that's also usually a sign that, maybe it's not super healthy, or
I think for guys, like for all the guys who are listening and stuff, like I think a dating relationship, like there's like having a girlfriend and stuff, which is, might be like a status or whatever, but I think that like a true relationship is really closer to a friendship than you might realize. I think that some things that they were just pointing out, those are qualities of friendship, deep conversations, having fun together and stuff like that. I think that a romantic relationship, a dating relationship, is really at its root a friendship that is really special, that God has set up, and that can be fulfilled in a romantic way. So
I agree with me. Like I think one thing, Katie and I like to call it side-by-side time, and just like hanging out. Like you don't always hang out with just your significant other. Like it's really important to include other friends or other couples in your relationship.
Yeah, that's like one of the biggest things I think of. Like I think a tendency when you're dating someone is to like become totally like your world revolves around just that person, and that when you're dating someone is to like become totally like your world revolves around just that person, and that can be really unhealthy. It's really important for us, whether we're single, dating, married, engaged, like whatever season of like relationship you're in, that you're also surrounded by other people, and that like no one person becomes your whole world. Like I think we romanticize that idea, but it's actually not healthy. And I think God calls us to like community, and like our relationships romantically are a piece of that community, but never a substitute for that or the one cure for our loneliness, I guess.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Okay. Let's talk about the next question. How do you know if you are in a place in life where you're ready to start dating? Good question.
Man, that can really change. Like I would say, like, I don't know. I'm gonna let somebody else answer this.
I think your friendships may be a good indicator of that. Like if you are having healthy, vibrant friendships and you're not really, really, really needy and dependent on your friends, and you also don't have a lot of friends who are really, really, really needy and dependent on you, and you have to be with each other. You know what I mean? Like just kind of how you are in your friendships is probably a good indicator potentially of like where you're at, I think, and how you depend on other people and relationships. So I think that could be a really helpful indicator, which is hard, and that's a hard thing to know of yourself. So maybe even like checking in with other people if you aren't sure how that's going. I don't know.
Yeah. maybe a great caveat to all these things that we're about to share is that there's grace, right?
Yeah.
Because there can totally be a situation, maybe like, for seniors who are graduating, who are gonna, or maybe if you're moving and you find yourself in a position where you don't have a whole lot of friendships, things like that. There's grace here, but I'm just reminded of kind of the central theme of the entire It's Complicated series that Lindsay has talked about so many times is that the ultimate fulfillment of your heart, of every person's soul, is found in Jesus. And so like I would say that if you feel like you don't really know the Lord, or if you're just like spiritually in a rough place, or you feel like maybe like you just kind of feel inside that you don't really trust God, you're holding God at a distance, that is just an indicator of just kind of like unhealthiness in general in your life. And so even when you're dating, and even in Lindsay and I's marriage, if we just kind of know that, like, if we don't have a lot of good friendships, if we don't have people pouring into our lives, or if we aren't giving God time to pour into our lives, we are going to be unhealthy, and we are going to be unhealthy towards each other. And I think if you were to take that concept and apply it to dating, especially in high school, it's almost amplified, because in high school, there's just a whole lot more opportunity to isolate yourself with just one person, and for that isolation to separate you from your friendships. Then you don't have people pouring into your life. Maybe you're not going to listen to people who are trying to like warn you about this person or something like that. And then maybe you're not having time with God, and the Holy Spirit isn't pouring into your life. So I'd say signs of health would be healthy friendships, healthy spiritual life.
Yeah, I kind of thought of like an analogy, and you can tell me if this is horrible, but like if it almost feels like it's a place in life where it's like, when they tell you like if someone's drowning in a pool, like if you're swimming next to them, like don't try to grab them if you don't have like a device or something, because then you'll just go down with them. So it's like, if that's what it feels like you're just reaching out to someone to kind of save yourself and to be okay yourself, then that's when you know you're not depending on the Lord, and not like in that healthy community of people that you need to be, and you're just kind of reaching out for a relationship to like save you. So that's kind of like I don't know.
That's huge.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's lots of angles to it. What was the question originally?
How do you know if you're ready to start dating?
It's kind of how you know if you're
Yeah.
not healthy.
That's how you know if you're not.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, so I think if you're depending,
yeah.
Go ahead.
Michelle said this earlier too. I'm like, there was a lot of good wisdom shared there, but sometimes it's even hard to discern, well, am I in that place that they were just describing of unhealth? And I love what Michelle said at the very beginning, and just processing that through with other wise people. That could be parents, that could be a mentor, that could be a trusted friend, and just asking them their thoughts of like where you're at in life and if you're in a good season. And I think too, like we need to, especially you guys as high school students, but even as adults, like we have to think about honoring our parents and like okay with me doing this too. I think that's key for like, especially in this stage of life that a lot of you guys are in high school. It's not going to be good or healthy if it starts by you rebelling. So that's just another aspect to it. But I think the wise people in your life are key. So.
Mind if I bring another point there?
Sure.
So when I was in high school, in college, I saw some I just kind of saw this pattern happen a lot where there would be someone who was like really insecure and really lonely, but really had a heart for loving people really well. And somehow that kind of turned into what we sometimes call a savior complex. And that is the idea that like, I can fix that person and then they're going to love me. That's pretty unhealthy. And I think that what's really awesome about being in a relationship with people, with your Christian brothers and sisters who love the Lord and who want to know Jesus and want to grow in the Lord, is that they can hopefully point that out to you. And this whole thing, you gotta be humble enough to be able to hear that sort of feedback. But I would say that like if you have the humility to recognize that like, you know what, like and guys, this is 100% even how Lindsay and I and Tim and Michelle and I know you guys do this too, but like even in our married relationships, like I trust that Lindsay like is like dependent on Jesus, and that I ultimately can't fix Lindsay. Like ultimately, like Lindsay goes to the Lord, and it's just like it's so awesome to see Lindsay spend time with Jesus and to just like to do work in her heart. And so I think that if you have the humility to recognize that like, okay, I can't fix people, only the Lord can, then when you're dating somebody, you can also then kind of have a more kind of like sober vision of even the person you're dating, of like, you know what, maybe this guy I'm dating isn't healthy, isn't in a good place, and maybe he shouldn't be dating me, or vice versa with guys, or you could be dating a girl and be like, this girl is not in a healthy place and I don't think we should be dating. And so I think that, that's just
cool. Sweet. Okay, we'll move on to the next question. I would love to talk about just boundaries in dating. We've talked about the idea of fleeing from sexual immorality, from sexual temptation, things like that. There's also an emotional aspect that Dave was really talking about, like of just your identity becoming so wrapped up in someone else. But I would love to just open it up for questions like, what does that look like to set good boundaries in a relationship, whether that's physically or emotionally? You guys could speak to either. I'm going to pop up here to check questions while you guys answer.
Maybe like one encouragement like for you all is just, even if you're setting up boundaries and figuring out the different things, like something that like I know we found really helpful in our relationship is just like, if you realize like 2 weeks have gone by and you've like crossed a boundary that you set, like bring it up. Like don't be afraid to be like, hey, remember we said we weren't really going to do that, now we're doing that, and like let's just talk about it and reset. Like keep it an open conversation. Don't be like, I don't know, don't let those boundaries kind of like disappear and just kind of ignore them and be in denial about them, but at the same time, like don't shame yourself for them either when you do cross them, but just kind of like have that moment, stop, be like, okay, how do we feel about this? And then say, I would really like to not do this. So yeah, that's my advice.
Yeah. I'd say that like yeah, like just super basics, you know, like respect your girlfriend or boyfriend's boundaries. And if they are not respecting your boundaries, that is a huge red flag. Pay attention to it, take it seriously, and you are under no obligation to date them. You don't have to do anything you don't want to do. You are under zero obligation to date that person if they're not respecting you. So talk to somebody, get help, talk to a friend, and have that conversation with them. So.
I think one like good kind of illustration that I was given one time was like a wheel, and like a wheel has spokes, and like kind of the dating wheel has like three spokes. Like one is physical, one is spiritual, and one is emotional. And like at the beginning of your relationship, you're not going to be very emotional. You're not going to know the other person emotionally very well or spiritually very well. And so the physical part of your relationship shouldn't be much more than like a friendship relationship. But like as the dating relationship progresses, you're going to get to know that person emotionally better and spiritually better. And so it is appropriate for the physical aspect of your relationship to grow with those other things. And just kind of, it's hard to know because there's no like, you know, you can't like with emotional boundaries and spiritual boundaries, there's no like definitive things. There are with spirit or with physical, but yeah, it's just one thing. Like, don't be like as your relationship grows, it's normal for the things that you're doing together physically to grow.
Yeah, I'd say that like, yeah, that totally makes sense. And a quote that I heard that really like kind of changed how I view like physical boundaries and stuff in dating was a mentor of mine said, I've never met a Christian couple that like wishes that they like had like looser boundaries, right? I've never met a couple who wishes that they did more while they were dating before they got married. And you know, more boundaries is better. Less is more in dating. Physical closeness can really complicate things and really confuse you. And it may not be like, you know, especially if you are if you just do the physical first and say, you know, you and your girlfriend are just like making it, you know, it's you know, we're getting back to like the friendship aspect, you know, then it's you are opening yourself up to a whole lot of hurt later when you realize that I don't actually like this person, you know, and then I think we're gonna break up, or me and this person like really did be really hurtful. So stepping back is always a great idea, you know, especially if you know the friendship and the relationship is the most important thing. Then that's what should matter. Like you should be able to enjoy that person for who they are inside, you know. Yeah.
All right, let's do another question. I would love to hear your thoughts. If you're a Christian, should you date a non-Christian? A lot of people want to talk about that. I think it's a good question. It's one that I think each of you should process through for yourself, and set a boundary in your own heart about that. That can be really helpful. So, can any of you guys speak to that? Dating a non-Christian if you're a Christian. Is that a good idea, bad idea? Is it a gray area?
I think it can like open your heart to a lot of hurt in the future. Like if you think about like dating as like, I'm gonna keep dating this person, gonna get to know them more and more, like I'm falling in love with them, but then you find that you're still not on the same page about like the most important thing in your life, like that's devastating. And I think like I've just witnessed that in my own life, in friendships with other people. I've just seen that like multiple times, and it is absolutely devastating. And I think it's kind of hard in high school because you're like, it doesn't really seem that serious, and like I don't really know, or maybe they're like a really good friend and they're a really great person, and it's like all those things are awesome and valid, but I would really like take a lot of time to like consider if it's worth opening yourself up to that hurt, to at the end of the day like fall in love with someone and realize like I can't marry this person, or I can't be with this person. But yeah, I don't know. I've not seen that work out well. So that's just my advice.
I always think people refer to this passage, and it's not just about marriage or romantic relationships, but it says, do not be yoked together with unbelievers. And a yoke is like something that binds two animals together while they're like plowing a field, right? And so if we think about that, what it's really saying is don't be like joined together in a way that's not separable with someone who has a different end goal in mind than you.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think it's not that we're trying to say like dating someone or non-Christian people aren't good people to have in your life, aren't great people to be friends with. Of course, we think that that's awesome, and we want to actually point those people to Jesus. But what we're saying is like the person that you commit to doing life with, whether that's just in a dating relationship and that only lasts for a season, or it's in a marriage for the rest of your life, like you want to be yoked together, joined together, committed to somebody that's going after the same things as you. Because if two oxen are like going together in the same direction, they can pull way more than double what one animal can pull by themselves. And so it's kind of a cool metaphor of just like, yeah, when two people are on the same page, the amount that they can move forward in their faith and the effectiveness that they have in their walks with God and their ministry is just so much better than if you have a divided house or goal or whatever. So
Yeah.
that's that. We'll move on just because we're running short on time. Guys, everyone, welcome Tim. Tim! Here, Tim, you can come sit by Michelle.
Cool.
We'll scoot over.
I would love to.
We'll scoot. Tim's joining us. Tim's been doing a ton of stuff for Calvary today, getting communication out about all the stuff happening with coronavirus, which we'll talk about here in a couple minutes. But he joined us for the last few of the panel. So I'd love to know how do you guys deal with breakups, deal with being single? I know that for some of us, we're married now. Katie only ever dated Michael, so she experienced a long season of singleness before meeting Michael. But how have you guys dealt with being single or being broken up with in life? It's rough. That's what we're getting. The silence says, guys, it can be hard sometimes. It can be really hard.
I think the biggest thing for dealing with being single and probably being on either side of a relationship, like hoping for one in the future and also dealing with the end of a relationship, is just and it's so hard, but just finding your identity in Christ and knowing that your self-worth isn't driven from a relationship. I think that's probably the biggest thing, which can be really, really hard.
Can you break that down? The identity in Christ? Can you just?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
I think it's finding that your self-worth, that you were created in the image of God, that also God has like a plan for you. He loves you. He's gonna work like all things together, like for your good, like for his glory, and like who knows what that's gonna look like or what the timing is gonna be. But that's the biggest thing. And also, if you've been broken up with, it sometimes isn't even a reflection on you. It's just God didn't want you to be with that person. That's not the spouse that he has for you in the future. And that could take you guys, it could take like year or like a couple of years or whatever to even like it's not just like you'll realize that the next day, but it's just holding on to your identity and knowing that God has a plan.
Mm-hmm. So good.
Yeah, I think that's like really the biggest thing is like if someone breaks up with you, or if you feel like for whatever reason, like your heart, like God has just really spoken to you to break up with someone else, and you don't really like feel like you have this super clear why, and maybe you do, but if you don't, either way, like just trusting that God has a plan, because I think that can be so hard if someone breaks up with you and it feels like the ultimate question you're asking is, well, what's wrong with me? And that is just, that's the hardest question to ask, because oftentimes there's nothing wrong with you and nothing wrong with the other person. I think it's just having to trust that, like Tim said, like it's not, that doesn't speak to your identity. You're not broken. You're not too much for someone. They're not too much for you. It just could be a matter of like, God has something different. He has something better. And and then I think in singleness, personally, like for me, what was the question? Like, how did you do singleness, or just
just like how do you stay
also
content in
single.
that time when you
Yeah.
want to be in a relationship but you're not?
Yeah, honestly, to be honest, I think one of the biggest things for me in singleness was having the sweetest friendships and having incredible mentors. Like, I think that having an incredible community of like other single girls around me, like friends that I just had so much fun with, had incredible, like vulnerable, like friendships with, that we loved Jesus together and got to talk about that, was just the best thing. One of my favorite parts about being single, like often I look back on some of my single seasons and I'm not even like sad that I wasn't dating anyone, because I had so much fun in these friendships. And then having a mentor to talk to when you're feeling like, gosh, I just wish I was dating someone, and that's okay. Like, I think I beat myself up too much for wishing I was like in a relationship, and that's okay. There's grace for wishing you were in a relationship or having a crush on someone. Like, we don't need to beat ourselves up about that. I think we do that in Christian culture sometimes, and it's okay. Like, especially if they're an attractive person that loves Jesus, like that's great. You're appreciating those things about them. And so I think not beating yourself up, but having accountability. If it's not mutual and they don't like you and you're still going to be single, then you're talking to people about it and just, taking it to your friends, your mentor, and not obsessing about it. And that can be the hardest part, is just sitting in patience and knowing that just because they don't like you doesn't mean there's anything wrong with you. One of my really wise friends once told me that attraction is a gift. And I love that, because attraction is something I think that we assume happens when just two people that are attractive people like each other. And it's like, that isn't always the case. Like, if there's one really attractive person and another really attractive person in whatever ways, then they don't always like the other person. And that's just, I think it's often like God's gift to us is attraction for someone else. And I don't know if that makes any sense. It's kind of confusing and nuanced, but I think it's, we just forget that there's nothing wrong with us if someone isn't attracted to us. And I mean, not physically, emotionally, like in every sense, not just, So anyway, so my soapbox. Love it.
Yeah, I was single for like a really long time. And I think, like Lindsay and I met each other when I was 27. And like I really like, especially when I was in high school, and I really wanted to be in a relationship, and I had a lot of thoughts on being single, and I think a big one is that in some ways, like, you don't have to date anybody, and I think some of the freedom of being a Christian is the truth of the gospel is that human beings' ultimate fulfillment comes from Jesus. And God designed us that way, to be in a relationship with Him, and it's very freeing. And in fact, the Bible even like advocates that like you don't have to date people. Like, you can be single. You're free to be single, and that doesn't make you less of a person. And you may hear that and be like, okay, that's all well and good, but that was a very powerful message for any society that, like most societies on earth, including ones today, there's such an emphasis on you got to get married and you got to have kids. Their social statuses, right? And God frees us from that, from those obligations where, when God in the beginning, said that it's not good for man to be alone. Well, there's two fixes to that. There's the first fix is knowing God, and then you're never alone when you know the Lord. And so I think like during that time, like I just like dove deep into my relationship with God. I spent time figuring out who I am, what I'm good at, what my dreams and goals are and stuff. But I just had to keep coming back to him, keep coming back to that God loves me, and like with me and God like together, like God completes my soul, and like when God completes me, then I'm free to date somebody because I want to date someone. And I think a really cool phrase that amongst my Christian brothers and sisters in college was that I want to be able to want somebody but not need them. And there's a distinction there. Like because only God can bear the immense burden of completing you. Lindsay doesn't have to do that. And I don't need to put that burden on God and with the Holy Spirit. That frees me from my spiritual burdens, and then I'm free to want Lindsay, and to want to be around her. And there's a distinction there. I hope that makes sense.
Cool. Okay, we're gonna wrap it here, and then I have a few announcements, but I want to end on just any like quick tidbits of dating advice that you would leave everyone with. So anyone can go first, and not everyone has to go. But oh man, I know. Could just be something we haven't covered yet that's on your mind, or I don't know.
I don't know if you guys have covered this yet, but one of my pieces of advice would be you don't, and kind of going off what Nate was talking about, you don't have to be just like actively like looking for a relationship and like have it just like control everything.
Yeah.
It might be just that next small group you join, or you might just like meet someone somewhere, or you might be just doing something, doing ministry with the Lord, creating friendships, starting new hobbies, activities, and God might bring that person just across your path, which is exciting. So it's not like, if I'm not trying to get a boyfriend or girlfriend, God's gonna leave me alone until I'm like 55. Like,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's fun.
I had something now it just left my
Escaped
brain.
you.
I'm like, oh my gosh, what was I gonna say?
If you guys
Tim,
disagree with that,
Tim
you can
distracted
say so.
me. I don't even know. What was I gonna say? Oh, I know what I was gonna say. I think there's this tendency in Christian circles to just be like, you date with the intention of marriage, and then that's well and good. I think you should date with marriage in mind, knowing that hopefully someday you are gonna end up with someone that you're with for the rest of your life. But I don't think you need to put that amount of intensity always on a relationship right at the beginning. Like, it's okay to just go on a date with someone and get to know them. You don't have to like commit to being their boyfriend or girlfriend like right away. Like, you can just casually date and get to know people and ask God for his guidance and ask mentors and friends for their guidance in the process. You don't have to put this huge amount of pressure on it right away. So
Yeah, I totally agree with Lindsay. Like, once you've actually committed to a relationship, like marriage should be the ultimate goal. But like, you can go on quite a few dates before you actually commit to being in a relationship. I think my piece of advice would be like, once you've kind of done that self-evaluation of, am I ready to date? Like, am I in a place, where I could be like a healthy significant other? And once you've found someone else who's also in that position, like, just don't be afraid. Guys, don't be afraid to ask the girl out, and girls don't be afraid to say yes, and just like go on a date and see if you enjoy talking to that person, being with them.
Yeah.
love it.
You can spend years, like waiting to become perfect to be ready for dating, and waste a lot of time. And you don't need to do that. You don't need to put that pressure, because truthfully, in some ways,
You don't need to be perfect.
You don't need to be
You
perfect.
won't be.
Yeah,
because you're not perfect until you get married.
Yeah. Or at we're perfect. Now.
Yikes.
Yikes. Heresy.
I think also make sure your like friends know your significant others. Like, if your friends don't know them and don't feel comfortable approaching them, or don't feel like they can get to know them, then that's like an issue. Like, your friends should feel free to come up and talk to you, and you should feel comfortable being with your friends around your significant other. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's my advice.
Started another live video. Sorry, YouTube people. This was an Instagram. Pause. Okay.
Yeah.
Anyways,
All right.
that's all.
That's really
That's
good.
all.
That's-
Good stuff.
that's
Okay,
really
what time is it? Oh, I gotta go, you guys. I have some announcements for you, and then we're gonna jump on Zoom, okay? announcements are,
Technology.
I would love for you guys to reach out if you need prayer for anything. We know this season can be really hard. There's just a lot of things going on with coronavirus and you guys being at home and not going to school and potentially financial things. So please, please, please reach out to me, reach out to your small group leaders if you need prayer for anything. Tune in to church on Sunday. It's going to be online at calvarybible.com. Would love for you to just watch that and be a part of church on Sunday virtually. And then for the next 3 weeks, we won't have WNT in person, but we're planning to do something similar to what we did tonight. We'll keep communicating about that. And then this is pretty exciting. Next week, since we won't be on the Ironman trip as we anticipated, we are planning to give you guys some tools next week so that you can just engage in your own kind of at-home retreat. We're calling it Ironman Home Edition. So you can do spiritual recesses, you can have your own solitude day, and we'll have some virtual gatherings throughout the week for you guys to just connect when we would have been hanging out in California. So I know we're all still sad about that. I'm still grieving it, but I think it's going to be sweet to be together. So that is, I think, it. We'll keep in touch with you guys over all the social media, text, email, etc. You can hop on the Zoom now. I'm just going to grab that info for you. Let's see here. Okay, it is trying to find all this info. I'm like not great at all this tech yet. Okay, so the meeting ID, it's 764-336-406. 764-336-406. And then the password is the date. So it's 03-2018. We are super thankful for you guys. I'll pray us out and then you guys can head to small group. If you didn't catch all those numbers and things, please just check your text messages from WNT or check the Instagram account and you can find those numbers again there and we'll get you into your breakout groups shortly. But I'll pray and then we'll close.
Lindsay, I think
Nate has a
you
question.
got the password wrong.
Oh, I did?
Yeah, can you just reread it?
I didn't read it from here.
No.
It's 2020. Is it?
It's just 20.
0320. You
Oh.
said 0320.
Oh, sorry. The password is the date. So it's 03, which is the month, then 18, and then 20.
Okay.
3/18/20. 03/18.
Check your text messages.
Check your text, your Instagram. I'm praying. Then we'll be done. Thanks for joining us tonight, you guys. Jesus, thanks so much for this time. We thank you for being with us, God. We know that church isn't about a building or a place, but it's your people gathered together. And I thank you for the chance that we had to do that tonight using technology. And I just pray for us as we transition to a time in our groups and just for space where we could just share what's really going on, encourage one another, continue to ask questions. We're thankful for just this community that you've given us, God. It's in your name we pray. Amen. All right. Message me with questions. We'll see you guys on the Zoom call. Boop. End.
Good work, everyone.
Nice panel. Sorry, Lynn.
It sounded really good.
You said 2018. So I was just wanting you to say it again.
So then we were like,
Right,
is that the
we're
year?
just-
Yeah.
I mean, everyone obviously knows, but
I don't know if this is ending.
Past 2 years.
that was a great, you guys, good job.